If you have a story you'd like to hear featured on the channel, then go to mariesfield.com and send it my way. And of course, thank you. This happened when I was 15, going on 16. I'm also an only child, so while yes, people may think I'm lucky because I get more than some households with multiple children, I would much rather have siblings. It can get very lonely and boring. With that being said, I usually get to invite a friend or a cousin to go on trips or to special events with my parents and I. If we go to the movies, a theme park, the swimming pools, I usually get to bring someone. Spring break was not much different. My parents owned a condo in Florida, so sometimes we'd go there for spring break, in the summer or even for Christmas break. This year, we were going to be going there for spring break again, and it was also important to me because my birthday is in April, so it was supposed to be part of my Sweet 16. Because of this, my parents agreed to let me take a friend with me. As mentioned, I've had friends go with me on trips, but they've all been within the state. I've had cousins go with me to Florida, but never a friend of my choice. Rightfully so, I was excited about this. It was also part of my birthday gift, so I felt more like an adult. So, after all the parent talk and confirming locations, and that my parents weren't planning on selling off my friend, things were set and I was going to have some pre-birthday fun. My friend and I did have to keep our grades up in order to go, so after about a month of making sure everything was done and turned in on time, we were in the clear and on our way to Florida. We had plans to go to the beach, Universal Studios, and also just go to a mall or something to go shopping by ourselves. We got to choose our seats on the airplane and sit a few rows in front of my parents so we could have privacy. When we got there, they even let us sit at our own table at dinner. We did do a few things my parents wanted to do, like some kind of water boat ride thing with all these alligators around it, and we went to the Hard Rock Cafe because my dad is obsessed with that place. Things were going as normal for a while, but I will definitely say my arrogance got the best of me thinking I was an adult. So the day came for us to go to Universal Studios. This is where we started having troubles. My parents were still with us the entire time, but they didn't always go on the rides. They were just there when we got on, and then they would be there at the exit when it was over. On some of the rides that we had to wait on, we were standing there, people watching, and noticed one guy in particular. He stood out because, 1, he didn't have any kids with him or anyone else, and 2, he had on one of those tank tops with a muscular torso on it to make it look like it was your own. Those just look weird on anyone, but especially on him. He ended up on one of the rides we went on, and he just stared at us the entire time. We sat in the back of one of the rides, so he couldn't stare at us, but even looked back at us before it started and smiled. We were young and didn't really know how to react, so we just waved and smiled back. We saw him a couple more times, but he was never around when my parents were with us. Since he didn't really do anything though, we didn't bother telling them and just tried to enjoy our time there. We were there for most of the day, so we were pretty tired the next day. We wanted to go to the mall, but my parents said that we should just hang out there and then go to the beach to relax and then go tomorrow. We ultimately agreed, but the beach was looking pretty busy, so we stayed in most of the day doing our hair and makeup. My mom said she was going to run to the store to pick up stuff for dinner, and that my dad would be working on some things, so they agreed to let us go to the beach for a while by ourselves, since it was within walking distance of the condo. Again, it was exciting because we got to do something on our own, so with our hair and makeup done, we grabbed our stuff to head to the beach. We got out there and laid out our stuff and just sat there for a while talking. We took our phones, of course, and was taking stupid filter pictures, and to our surprise, we saw a tank top guy walking towards us. Again, we didn't really know how to react, so we just sat there and tried to pretend we were busy or having a serious conversation. He got maybe 5 to 10 feet from us and stopped and just kind of looked around and then laid out this sleeping bag. He sat down and looked up at the sky and then looked over at us, smiled and waved. Again, I waved back. I was facing him while my friend was facing away, so while we were having a fake conversation, I was texting her to say he just noticed us. He waved. So we started thinking about leaving when he started talking to us. It was okay at first, but then it got weird. The conversation went something like this. "Did you girls have fun at Universal?" "Yep." "That's good. They had some new ones out there, huh?" "I don't know. I haven't been in a while and she's never been." "Oh. Do you live around here?" "No." "Just on vacation?" "Yes." "You girls didn't get all prettied up to be out here by yourself though, did you?" "We're not alone." "So you waiting on your boyfriends?" I answered no, but my friend said yes. We didn't get to fully think out our answers. At this point, it was definitely getting uncomfortable, with a full-grown adult asking 16-year-old girls about having a boyfriend and calling us pretty. So we decided to come up with an excuse to leave. I start to grab my phone like I was getting a call to come home, and I tell my friend that we had to go, so we started grabbing our stuff, and he said, "Leaving already?" I tried saying the same thing about needing to go home when he started standing up real quick and said, "Well, if no one is here with you girls, then let me walk you home. You never know the kind of people that could be walking around." We, of course, said that it was okay and that I was staying in a place nearby. Then my friend gave me a look making me realize how stupid that was. He seemed to catch on because he had a very sinister grin and said something about, "Even better. It should be a short walk then, right?" My friend finally jumped in and said we're fine, and she grabbed me by my arm and we started walking quickly away from him. We were still pretty worried about the whole situation, and we turned around and noticed he was still standing there and smiling, holding his sleeping bag. So we kept walking. The condo was probably about a block away, so when we went around the corner, we stopped for a second to think what just happened. My friend was freaked out too, but she was laughing about it and making fun of the guy. I finally loosened up a bit and we kept walking. At one point, we started trying to do cartwheels home, just playing around and trying to shake off the weird vibes, when, as I land a cartwheel, I see him round the corner. He tried to make it look like he was on his phone, but he was holding it like he was taking pictures of us. At this point, we booked it. We ran straight ahead, paid no attention to him, and just ran. As we did, there was a woman and a young girl about to enter one of the condos close to us, so I just started shouting, "Mom, you called me? What's up?" The woman looked confused at first, but she must have seen the fear in our face and immediately started looking around and shuffled us into her place. I know it may have still been silly, but I thought since she had a kid with her, she was safe. Once we were in, we explained to her what happened. She believed us, thankfully, and since she was leaving, she agreed to walk us home, but told me to call my dad to make sure he was out there to greet us. Thankfully, he was nowhere to be seen after that, but we did tell my dad, and they called the cops to file a report. But as far as I know, they never found or caught the guy. From then, we were definitely more cautious of our surroundings, and my parents stayed close by, but we still had a good time. It was definitely a memorable trip. I felt bad for my friend, thinking she'd probably never be able to do something like that again. But I've also learned my lesson and was thankful for my friend and that lady. I am also a lot less naive in my late 20s and with my own kid, so I know I'll be stressing the importance of strangers and trusting your gut. But since then, and always, I hope to never see Tank Top Dude again. This happened to me and a few of my girlfriends one spring break a few years back. We were in our last year of college, and being consistently broke throughout it, we decided we wanted to go wild for spring break and have a great time before we graduated, as we may not see each other for some time afterwards. So when we weren't studying or in class, we were working as much as we could and saving every penny to make sure we had enough for a hotel room and a little extra for food and shopping. Surprisingly, we made it and had a great plan set up for us to have some much needed fun. We were planning to drive down to New Orleans. Thankfully, Sydney had a pretty new car that we all trusted to get us there. We were also lucky to get a hotel that was close to a pretty popular and busy part of the city, so we could easily walk around and back to the hotel. So with everything planned, we counted down the days and hardly slept the night before we departed. The next morning, Sydney, Ava, and I crammed our suitcases in the trunk, filled up a few bottles of water, and stuffed a backpack full of snacks and instant coffee from the rec room and took off. We listened to cringy, cliché, girly road trip music, and it was probably obnoxious when we had to stop to fill up and use the restroom, but we were in a zone and it was an amazing time. When we finally got there, though, I don't know if we really were still excited and wired, or if we were delusional, but we were ready to check in and go have a great time. But once we got unpacked, we all crashed. Sydney and I were out pretty quick, so Ava tried to watch some TV, but she said she passed out soon after that. Anyways, we woke up pretty late that night, so we decided to order in and just make a nice night of it. When our food arrived, I went to get it when they called us. We were all in our pajamas, which for me consisted of a tank top and basketball shorts and a sports bra since I was leaving the room. As I got to the lobby, there was a guy leaning over the front counter while the receptionist was on the phone. I was grabbing the pizza when I noticed the guy had looked over at me while I was handing over the cash, and once I made eye contact, he smiled at me. Not gonna lie, I didn't dislike the attention though. I was the chubby friend. While the other two were more fit and attractive, I often wore baggier or loose clothing to hide my belly, which is also why I was wearing basketball shorts. So, needless to say, I smiled back. He was attractive too. He was wearing jeans, cowboy boots, and some band t-shirt that I don't remember. My favorite part was his long blonde hair. It was a little past his shoulders with the curls I wish I had myself. So definitely my type. I didn't know what else to do though, so I just continued to walk back to our room. I got back with the pizza and explained to them what happened. They gave me grief that I should have gotten his number or something and insisted on going out there to find him. After pleading with her not to, Ava walked out of the room to find the guy. After a while, she came back in and slapped down a napkin on the bed with a scribbled number and name on it. Alan. She had actually gotten it for me. They teased me for a while and said I should talk to him and invite him out with us tomorrow night, so I told them I would consider it, stashed the number in my pocket, and we enjoyed the rest of our night. The next day was going to be our day. We planned to be there for the weekend, so this was our full day to do whatever we wanted. We did some shopping, went to a popular local place for lunch, and then hung out in the pool to chill before we got ready for a night out. While we were in the pool, We talked about where we wanted to go and planned on hopping around to a few different places. As we were getting out and I was wrapping a towel around me, I saw Alan walking in the pool room wearing trunks and holding a towel. Again, he looked me up and down and smiled and said hi to me. I smiled, not knowing what else to do, and watched as he walked past me and got into the hot tub area. My friends pushed me to go sit in there with him, but I was way too nervous to do that. I wouldn't say I'm conservative in my ways, but I only had one serious relationship, and I had been out of it for some time, so I was still very shy about initiating anything. And with that, I walked back to our room with them. We all showered, munched on our leftover pizza, and got ready for the night. We planned on going to a bar that was pretty close by at the recommendation of another person staying at the hotel, and decided to start there first. We had a great time there, doing shots, being loud, I'm sure, but just your typical night out. It was the next place we decided to check out that things started picking up. That was definitely more of a party place. More drinks and dancing took place there for sure. Then they made jokes that my boyfriend was here. Sure enough, in walks Alan. At this point, it cannot be helped. He spots us and he is waved over by Ava. He's just standing by us, bobbing a bit and asking how we're doing, where we came from, things like that. Then he offered to get us all drinks. They, of course, didn't hesitate. So we got some free drinks and danced and talked for a while longer. He then suggested we hit up another place he knew of, and we all agreed. It looked more like an old home or apartment style that was turned into some kind of makeshift bar. I know from explaining it, it seems like it could be really sus, but it really looked legit. There was a bar, they asked for ID, there was a dance area, booths in the back, all of it. So we were cool with it when we got there. It was more of the last place though, more drinks given to us by Alan and dancing. Alan started dancing with me, grabbing my hips and whatnot, which was unexpected, but I let it go. Then he started getting a bit more aggressive with it. He would try to grope me in different places, and being the shy person I was, I didn't know how to react to it. So I would just move in a weird direction to where he couldn't grab me anymore and make some kind of comment like, and slightly shake my head or something. I wasn't intending to play hard to get, but I'm also not interested in one-night stands. So as the night continued, the groping continued, and so did the drinks. However, then the sickness showed its ugly face. I started feeling nauseous and dizzy, yet my friends were not. I figured since we were all doing the same shots, then I must just not be holding mine well. I didn't want to ruin their fun, so I told them how I was feeling and that I was just going to go back to the room. They offered to go with or at least walk me back, but I told them I would be fine. Then Alan offered to walk me back. I again told him he didn't have to, but he insisted. I gave up and agreed to let him walk me back and told my friends I would see them later. We walked back, had small talk, and he asked me if I was okay. I told him I probably just didn't eat enough or something and that I would be fine. I got up to our room and thanked him, and as I turned around, he pushed himself on me and started kissing me. I pushed him away and told him I wasn't ready for anything like that as it was too fast. That's when I saw the unexpected side of him. The anger on his face was obvious, and he made a comment about, "Well, what the hell was the point of all those drinks then? Don't you think you owe me?" At that point, I reached into my pocket, pulled out a 20 I had, and told him to have a good night and shut the door. The rest of that night, though, was a total blur. I remember going to the bathroom, getting sick, then crawled into the bed and passed out. I remember having a weird dream that was almost like sleep paralysis. I had never experienced anything like it before, but I remember seeing a dark figure above me, and I felt like my body was being pulled and moved in different directions, but it wasn't by myself. Then it disappeared, and I didn't remember anything else till I woke up earlier to my friends. They were desperately trying to wake me up, and I remembered going in and out thinking they were just messing with me, but I could hear the concern in their voice, which finally got me to wake up, but I was still very groggy and my head was pounding. Then they started explaining what was going on. After we had left, Alan hadn't come back yet, and it was over half an hour. Plenty of time for him to drop me off and come back. They were kind of worried because they knew I wasn't the type to let him in, and especially not without telling them. They thought maybe he just didn't return because he wasn't interested in them, but then they tried calling and it seemed to be ignored, then went straight to voicemail the second time. They became worried and started to leave. Then as they were leaving, there were a few guys distracting them and trying to get them to stay. They finally got out of there and rushed back to our room. When they got there, they opened the door and saw a figure standing in our room in the dark. They flipped on the lights and immediately started yelling as they saw Alan standing in the room with his pants off. He quickly ran to the door where Sydney tried to stop him, but he shoved her out of the way, and as she was trying to get up, he got out of the door and was gone. Sydney said she tried chasing him down the hall but lost him. However, she was screaming, so it got the person's attention at the desk. All of this, of course, was told to me afterwards because I had been drugged. That's why I didn't remember any of this, why I felt sick, and even worse, why I felt like I was experiencing sleep paralysis. It was him. He was trying to undress me. He didn't get far though when they walked in on him. From there, the receptionist called the police, but he was long gone. They took their report, and then when I finally came to, they questioned me. I had to go to the hospital though to make sure I was okay. I just felt bad as I was thinking I ruined our trip, whereas my friends felt awful for ever letting me go alone or getting his number. I think we all explained to each other back and forth plenty that we don't blame each other. Unfortunately, the guy was never caught, and Alan was most likely not even his real name, as they didn't even have anyone checked in there under that name. We still have no idea if it was a fake or if he was even staying there. I'm a lot safer now and don't dare go anywhere by myself, or at least not with strangers. But to Alan, or whoever the hell you are, I hope we do meet up again, because this time I know I'll have the upper hand. Many years ago, my girlfriend Maya and I spent our spring break on a road trip to St. Louis, Missouri from New Mexico. We wanted to see the Gateway Arch and check out some other sites nearby. She also had grandparents that lived in the area, and they welcomed us to stay with them while we were there. They gave us a bit more wiggle room in our budget, and that helped greatly. We planned on leaving super early to get a head start on traffic and taking turns driving and sleeping so we could save more time and money on hotels, which did work out in our favor. Well, for the most part. Most of the drive went smoothly. We had printed out our drive and directions and even planned out our stops. Yes, printed directions. That should tell you how long ago this was. We ate, made our planned stops with minimal detours or extra stops, and slept all according to plan. What we didn't account for, though, were the Midwestern storms. We had stopped at a gas station in eastern Kansas to fuel up, and it had started raining. No big deal. We had a fully functional car, so the wiper blades worked just fine. We got back on the road and continued on, knowing we only had about 4 or 5 hours left of our drive. but it hadn't been even an hour later when the rain began pouring. I lived in New Mexico all my life. I had seen some rainstorms and some pretty bad ones, but I had never experienced anything like this. So yeah, I'm not afraid to say that I got a little nervous. Maya, however, wasn't as concerned and just offered to drive if I wasn't comfortable. Seeing her calm demeanor helped me calm down some, and I continued on. Unfortunately, the rain would not let up, and it became louder as it hit my car. That's when we realized it wasn't just rain. It was now hail. I have never seen hail so big in my life, and still haven't since. It became so loud and heavy that I thought it was going to break my windshield. I couldn't really hold back my fear, so Maya suggested we pull over so she could drive. This time I agreed. We pulled into a gas station, and I went in asking to use their phone. Maya didn't have a phone, and I just had a prepaid one that I was trying to save the time on in case of emergencies. I called my parents and let them know where we were. I explained how bad the weather was, and my mom sounded worried and suggested we take shelter at a hotel until it passed. Of course, this didn't help relieve any concerns, but I told them I would consider it and ended the call. I went back to Maya, and after sharing with her, she said she would continue the drive, saying we would be fine. I tried my best to remain calm and trust her judgment. We continued to drive, but it seemed like we were going further into the storm. The rain and hail continued, and the wind was so strong, I thought it might even blow us off the road. And speaking of the road, I could barely see the lines on it, let alone a few feet in front of us. We were on a pretty empty stretch of road with no exits nearby, but I looked over at Maya to ask if we should maybe just pull over and wait it out, and her face told me all I needed to know. She no longer looked confident. I pleaded with her to pull over, and she agreed. Now on the shoulder and parked, we sat there in the dark in silence, trying to decide the best thing to do. I grabbed my phone from my purse to at least call her grandparents or my parents with an update, and of course, I didn't have signal. It was a bit disconcerting to see, but I told myself that we were parked, so we should be okay. We tried keeping each other calm by just talking and occupying ourselves, which did start to work. We probably sat there for about 30 or 45 minutes when we noticed the hail had stopped. It was still raining pretty hard, but since the hail cleared up, we could see the road a bit better and decided to give it another go. But as it goes, there's always something. Now the car wasn't moving. It started just fine, but it appeared to be stuck. We got out and checked, and sure enough, the tires on the passenger side had sunk into the mud. This road didn't have any barriers on the side, so it just went from road to grass and dirt. I tried pushing it while Maya steered, but it wasn't budging. Then, when we finally got some movement, it began sliding more into the shoulder, almost like it was fishtailing. Sorry, I'm not good with cars at all, and I'm not sure how to better describe it. At this point, there was no way we were going to be able to get the car out alone. We got back in the car, now soaked, and grabbed our beach towels from our bags. Cue the worried feelings again. Now we were definitely stuck in the storm, in the middle of nowhere, late at night, and had no options. I still didn't have a signal, and neither of us had any other ideas. I just really hoped we wouldn't start hearing tornado sirens too. We just grabbed some snacks from our food bag and tried to wait it out and hoped for the best. Honestly, this whole thing took a lot out of us, not to mention the whole drive prior, so we both started getting drowsy. As we were laying back, trying to relax and stay calm, we saw lights coming from the opposite direction towards us. To our surprise, they slowed down stopping next to us and rolled down their window. It was an older man in a pickup, and he said the best thing that I had heard that night. "Y'all need some help?" We probably should have been a little hesitant at first, for the same reasons as above, middle of nowhere, stranger, etc., etc. But we were so desperate that we decided to take the risk. The man got out of his truck, put some kind of board between my back bumper and his front, and pushed my car while Maya steered it. It came out like it was nothing, and the man's truck plowed right through the mud too. By the end of it, we were all completely exhausted, soaked, and freezing. But finally, with the man's help, we managed to get our car back on the road. He even followed us to the next exit, which had a McDonald's, to make sure we were out okay. We were incredibly grateful to that man. He could have kept on driving. He could have been a creep, and we would have had nowhere to go. But instead, he stopped and helped two dumb girls stuck in a ditch. We tried to pay him as a thank you, but he refused and said he was just happy to help. We went in and used their phone to call my parents, her grandparents to give them an update, then decided to sleep in our car in the parking lot for a few hours, hoping that by the time it was lighter out, the rain would have dissipated. Thankfully, it did, and we made it to her grandparents' place with no other issues. Overall, it ended up being a great trip, but I told Maya that never again will I drive anywhere in the rain with her, only partially joking. But it was also nice to see that there are still good people out there willing to lend a hand. So that, my friends, was a collection of spring break stories. I didn't really do anything crazy for spring break as a kid. I feel like a week off for school wasn't very long to do anything. At least a week for a kid isn't very long. But I can relate to those Midwestern storms. Being from Kansas, they can get pretty crazy. I've seen the large hail before. I've experienced several tornado warnings. Thankfully, I haven't ever experienced one. But I know that the tornado warnings are always handled differently depending on the person, I guess. There was one time at our current place where they started going off. The sky was very gray. It looked pretty scary, and with the sirens going off, we gathered everybody downstairs, and it was kind of funny and scary because we grabbed the cats. We're all in the basement, and then I also have a turtle and a tortoise, so I had to dig them out of their tanks, put them in a little box, and bring them downstairs with us while we all just kind of huddled down here like, what's gonna happen? So that was kind of weird, not thinking about pets that aren't like dogs and cats that you have to grab. But everything was fine. We didn't have a tornado or anything, thankfully. But right before we went downstairs, you could also hear somebody mowing their lawn next door. So I guess we're just kind of used to it, which is not a good thing, but it is what it is, I guess. Anyways, if you did enjoy this video, please do give it a like below. And if you'd like to hear more content like this, consider subscribing if you haven't already. And lastly, don't forget to leave a comment on your thoughts or let me know if you did anything crazy for spring break, whichever. And if you didn't have to be scary, maybe you just did something memorable. But with that being said, friends, I hope you have a fantastic day and a fabulous week. And until next time, take care.